My name is Mike Daniel, and you're watching a Tuesday teaching with Zoe Code Ministries. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a story of Lazarus out of John 11. When Jesus was told that Lazarus was ill, it says that he loved, in John 11, it says that he loved Mary and Martha and their brother Lazarus. He loved them, and Lazarus was ill, very ill. And so, because he loved them, not for the glory of God despite loving them, not because he had a plan for something more important to him, but actually because of his love for them, he waited 2 more days before he went to Lazarus. Isn't that interesting? It says that he waited 2 more days. You know, the reality is sometimes we don't understand what God is doing, and it's because our values are not always what he values. We all aren't always focused on what he's focused on. Now, for me, if someone said, well, he loves that person and so he delayed doing what they wanted. He loved that person so he didn't help them in their time of need. He loved that person so he didn't do what seemed most necessary for that person's benefit. Those seem contrary. And here it clearly says, that literally, word by word, says that Jesus loved Martha and her sister Mary and Lazarus. So, because of that, when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. And then later he told the disciples, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'll go to awaken him. And they said, hey, if he's asleep, let's not go to a place where there's a lot of danger for us, for you. Let's not go there because he'll be okay if he's asleep. And Jesus said, no, you don't get it. He's passed away. And then he makes this incredible statement. Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died, and for your sake, for the disciples, I am glad that I wasn't there. But now, let's go. Let's go to where he is. Watch this. Jesus values Mary and Martha and Lazarus so much that he doesn't do what most of us would think is useful. And he loves the disciples for their sake, not for his own sake, not for the glory of God at their expense, not because he has a plan for something more important than what they want, but for their sake, he is glad that he wasn't there to heal Lazarus. This is amazing to me. It means that God was not, or Jesus on God's behalf was not motivated by the glory of God at their expense. It wasn't that he had a plan that was going to bring about something even better. Even though that's true, God is going to be glorified and he's going to bring about something better by his plan. But it's actually for Mary and Martha and Lazarus. It's actually for his disciples who would rather not go and risk death. And so it actually says Thomas, or Didymus, the twin, hears all of this and responds by saying, well, then let's go with him that we might die with him. So if he's going, I would rather go with him to die than stay away and live. There's a value difference that Jesus is bringing about in the lives of all of these people. His 12 disciples and these 3 people whom he loves, because he loves them so much, he is putting their real need above even what he would like to do. He's heart-wrenched over the death of Lazarus, as we'll see in just a moment. He really wants to intervene in their life, but for their sake, out of his love for them, he delays going, and he's glad that he's not there for their sake, because what's going to come about is for them. When he arrives, Martha comes out and meets him before he gets too close and rails on him and says, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And he makes this incredible transition with her as well. Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? He's saying, look, I know you're in the middle of the circumstance and you don't know this yet, but I've come to fix the circumstance. But before I fix the circumstance, I want you focused on me in the circumstance, do you believe that I am the resurrection and the life? You're looking at the temporal calamity, and I want you to look at my eternality. You're looking at the death in circumstance, and I want you to look at the life in me. Jesus is drawing her focus. She's embittered and hurt, and rightfully so, in the midst of her mourning about the loss of her brother. And she should be. Jesus never rebukes her, but he draws attention from the death in the circumstance to the life in himself. What contrast! I know that your brother, whom you love and I love, has passed away, but now I'm going to ask you about what you believe about my life. I am the resurrection and the life. Do you believe that about me? And she's forced to think in the midst of her grief, in the midst of her struggle, she's forced to think if she believes that Jesus is the life. He's drawing her attention again from the death of the circumstance to the life in himself, to the temporal calamity, to the reality of the eternality of Christ. Looking at the eternal instead of the temporal, looking at the life in Christ instead of the death in circumstance. She says, yes, I do believe that. I understand that you're the life. I believe in the resurrection. I know that you are God's chosen one, the Messiah. She knows who she believes Jesus is, but she doesn't know what that has to do with the death of her brother. But see, she was just thinking about the death of her brother. If you had been here, he wouldn't have died, and now that you delayed, he's dead, and my brother's dead, my brother's dead, my brother's dead, and rightfully so. If you're going through crisis today, Jesus is heartbroken for you. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't want you focused on his life in the midst of the death of circumstance. He wants to draw your heart, draw your attention, draw your focus to him who heals. That doesn't mean he's going to restore everything that you want from him. That doesn't mean he's always working on what you want him working on. It just means that it's not for lack of valuing you, not lack of concern for you, that he isn't doing what you want. It's not that he values something else more than you, so he's doing something that you don't want at your expense. It is out of his love for you that God is operating the way he is in your life. But it's not always going to be what you think he should be doing, because he knows something you don't know, and he intends something that you don't necessarily think is the greater good. He intended to wait for Lazarus to die, and everyone around him thought that was a bad idea. But out of his love for you and him knowing what you do not know, and his intention that you don't always think is good, he's going to bring about something better than you expect. And it's going to be different, but it's going to be better. So Jesus draws her attention to the life that he is and has to offer. He says, I am the life. And so she goes back. Okay, Jesus is talking about him being the life and him being the resurrection, and do we believe who he is? She goes back and gets her sister, and when her sister hears that Jesus would like to see him, Mary runs out as well. She throws herself at his feet and says the same thing. Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And it says when Jesus saw her weeping, and he saw the Jews that had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. It says that in his spirit he was moved, and the word greatly troubled literally means he was gutturally moved. It was heart-wrenching and stomach-wrenching and spiritually wrenching. Both in his spirit and his body, he was moved to anguish for her. And so she said, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. And she's weeping and they're weeping, and he's hurt with them and he's troubled with them. And so his response is not, no, it's okay, watch what I'm going to do. He doesn't immediately fix the cause of their grief. He doesn't immediately defend the character of God. He doesn't immediately defend the righteousness of his own plan. He doesn't immediately make everything okay. He says, where have you laid him? And they said, Lord, come and see. And Jesus, having seen them weeping, having come to the place of their grief, it says, Jesus wept. So the Jews said, see how he loved him. How powerful is that? Jesus could have healed them, which he would have preferred to do. Jesus could have shown up and immediately made everybody feel better, could have been working on them feeling better about the circumstance, could have told them his plan from the beginning, could have tried to fix the cause of their grief, but instead he entered their grief. See, that's a different value than what I have. I don't want Jesus, come and be with me so that I can be with you in the midst of my calamity. That's not what I'm pursuing. But Jesus pursued being with them in the midst of their grief before he tried to solve the cause of their grief. He wanted to enter into their circumstance before he brought about change in their circumstance. He wanted to be with them where they were and draw their attention to him as life before he fixed the circumstances that they were in and proved himself to be something that they weren't looking for. We value something that Jesus doesn't value, or sometimes we value something that he is valuing differently. And because he values being with them in their grief more than fixing their grief, because he values relationship over circumstance, because he values the eternal reality of life over the temporal circumstance of death, he's willing to use temporal circumstances and at the expense of the temporal bring about something of eternal value. But my friend, it is not at your expense that he brings about that value. It's out of his love and concern and heart for you and for me that he is escalating what is of real value in the eternal and at the expense sometimes of what is in the temporal. He's not defending himself. He's not striving for his glory at your expense. He's not using your circumstance for something that doesn't benefit you. It is out of his love for you and his concern for you and his wanting to be with you that he wants to enter into the circumstance with you before he does anything to change the circumstance that you're in. He's going to enter into your grief and calamity before he ever fixes your grief and calamity. And he's going to want your focus on him in the eternal before he's going to do anything that we might be wanting from him in the circumstantial and temporal. So Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb, came to the place of their grief. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. And Jesus said, "Take away the stone." And Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he's been dead 4 days." We're concerned about the stench of death. And Jesus says, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" He wants them to trust in the beautiful fragrance of Christ's life more than the certainty of the stench of death. In the midst of your circumstance, his goal is that your focus on him and your trust of him out of his love for you would bring you the fragrance of his life in the midst of circumstantial death. That the reality of his love and power and sovereignty would be greater. The reality of that would be greater for you than the calamity of the circumstance that you're in, that the eternal reality would trump the temporal circumstance. He's wanting to draw the attention to him, hope in him, life in him, circumstances devalued compared to the value of the eternal reality of him. He's making this shift and drawing our focus to him as our life. He turns and prays. It says, "They took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, 'Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you've sent me.'" Even in this, he's weeping, he's hurting, he wants Lazarus back, he wants everyone to be okay. He's in anguish with them, he's in anguish for them, he's in anguish for himself because of the loss of the one that he loves. But he stops and prays, not for himself, and not for Lazarus to be raised, but for the sake of others around him to know that he is sent from his Father and his Father hears his prayer. It's for them that he's praying, that they would hear him and know something of him. He delays going to the tomb that they might come and invite him into their grief. He delays Lazarus being raised so that he could enter into their grief. He wants to draw their focus to him and enter into the circumstance with them before he changes the circumstance, which he wants changed. And then he prays to God so that they can hear the prayer and grow by faith in what he is saying. It's for them, it's for them, it's for them. It's for them. It's crazy. They want something from him, but he values something for them greater than what they want. And what he wants for them is relationship with him as their life. Don't you know that I'm the life? Don't you want me to enter into the place of your circumstantial death? Don't you want to know the relationship I have with my Father in the midst of the circumstance that I am now entering in with you? Escalating things of greater value than the circumstance that he's entered into with them. So when he had said these things, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." And the man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." There's an important point not to be missed here, and that is that Lazarus would have been unclean. He's been in a place of death for 4 days. And Jesus is not just bringing him to life, he's declaring him clean. My friend, what Jesus has done for you and I is not just brought us to life out of death. He's not just resurrected us with him out of death, but he's declared us clean and holy and righteous and blameless and perfect in him. He doesn't just die for us and give us his life. He resurrects us as something entirely different. We were dead in the stench of death and the circumstances of sin, and he brought us to life and declared us to be clean. He doesn't just say that we're clean, he has made us clean. He has unbound us from death so that we might walk in the freedom of new life, free of the garb of being dead and sinful. He has declared us clean and unbound us from those things that bound us in death. Okay, so I say all of this because Jesus valued something that the others around him didn't value. He knew what they didn't know, and he intended something they didn't think would be good. And it was all just because he was valuing something more that everyone else valued less. Now, I used to think that the thing Jesus valued was the glory of God, but what he valued was relationship with them. Right? It wasn't at their expense that he brought about the glory of God. It was for Mary and Martha, his love for Mary, Martha, and Lazarus that he waited. It was for the disciples that he was glad he wasn't there. It was for Mary and Martha that he waited outside of the area of the tomb. It was with them that he wept and cried and operated. It was him that he drawed their attention to before they invited him into the circumstance of their grief. To be with him in the grief was of greater value to him than fixing the cause of the grief. To share in the grief was of greater value with him than just fixing the cause of the grief. My friend, God values a relationship with you more than he values his own life. He gave his life so that he could share it with you because he valued sharing it with you more than he valued his life apart from you. He who valued his life death for you more than life without you. Him who valued that would rather share with you in your grief than just fix it, because he realizes relationship between you and him is of greater value than the circumstances being fixed that cause you to want him to enter in. We cry out for deliverance from all of our circumstances. We cry out for what we need, his provision in all of our circumstances. And that's good because Jesus is the source of all good things. But listen to me, Jesus values relationship with you in the circumstance more than he values fixing and providing for the circumstance. Isn't that interesting? He knows that walking with him is of greater value than getting what you want from him. So Paul put it this way, he said, I want to know Christ, even fellowshipping with him in suffering, that I might obtain to that resurrected life in the midst of circumstantial death. I want to know Jesus in the suffering more than I want him to relieve the suffering. I want to know Jesus in the circumstance more than I want him to change the circumstance. I've come to wanting to know, to relate, to participate, to share with him. I value that more now than what I want from him in the circumstance. More than deliverance from the circumstance, more than provision in the circumstance. I want to know Christ in the circumstance because he is my life, not deliverance from circumstantial death. My friends, I think it was certainly was all about God's glory, but it was never at our expense. It was all about Jesus' love. It was all about our relationship with him. It was all about the relationship being more important than the circumstance for them. Take me where you hurt. Let me weep with you. Let me enter in with you. He didn't immediately fix the grief. He instead wanted to enter into the grief. He was incarnational with them before he worked divinely on his own behalf for them. Let me end with this. This week, in your circumstances, what would it look like for you to value your relationship with Christ in your circumstance more than what you want God to do for you in the circumstance? What would it look like to value your relationship with God in your circumstances more than wanting Him to change them or provide for you in them? What would it look like for you to desire Christ to be with you in the storm more than wanting the storm to be calmed, wanting Jesus to be with you walking on the waves instead of saving you from the waves? What would it look like that you would want Him to enter in with you as life instead of giving life to you from circumstances? My friend, the circumstances that God has called you to aren't the goal. He's calling you to Himself in those circumstances. He doesn't just want you to put your faith in Him for deliverance. He wants you to put your faith in Him in the midst of the circumstances He calls you to. He's not just calling you to something for you to see what He's going to do. He's calling you to Himself in the very things that you're going to have to deal with, that you might first know Him as life in any circumstance, and then having entered in to participate with you there as life, He can do whatever He wants with the circumstance, because you no longer need a fix in order to know life. Wouldn't that be great? I no longer need a fix in order to know life. I can know life, who is the one who can bring about whatever He wants in my circumstances. I pray that that encourages you, that Jesus Christ first wants to enter in, be relational, and share and participate in your grief, in your calamity, in your circumstance. And then and there you can experience Him as life regardless of the circumstance, and He can do whatever He wants for the glory of God with the circumstance. Be encouraged as God enters in out of His love for you, to walk with you, to be incarnational with you. And as you receive Him as life, you and I, by His grace, can afford to be incarnational in other people's grief and other people's circumstances. We can also elevate relationship with others more than what we want from them, more even than what we want for them. We can afford to enter in with them and let Jesus Christ and His life be incarnational through us in the lives and circumstances of those around us. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week.